Have you ever been in a situation where just a fleeting action, a seemingly minor attitude, but it can haunt you all day long? A scornful look, a seemingly harmless sarcasm, or a prolonged cold silence. And suddenly, your mood collapses, and you don't feel like doing anything anymore. People call this the insidious power of toxic people. They may not hurt you physically, but they exhaust you mentally. They may not take anything tangible from you, but they steal the peace of your mind. And most frighteningly, they can make you believe the problem lies with you, when in fact, it comes from them. The truth is, you can't completely avoid such people. They appear at work, in relationships, and even within your family. The only thing you can do is learn how to deal with them, so you don't get swept into their negative vortex. That is precisely the spirit that Stoicism wants to give you. Not running away from the world, but building an inner fortress strong enough, so that every time you face a toxic person, you don't react instinctively, but choose to respond rationally. In this journey, we will explore 12 timeless Stoic principles that not only help you cope with toxic people, but also help you live more freely, peacefully, and strongly. If you've ever felt trapped in someone else's negativity, if you've ever asked yourself, why do I let them affect me so much? Then this video is the answer you're looking for. Let's begin. Principle 1. Self-awareness. Imagine you are standing on the stage of life. You are the main character, yet one supporting character appears and can throw you off balance. A harsh word, a seemingly minor disrespectful behavior, and suddenly you find yourself being swept away in someone else's script. Why does this happen? Because often, you don't truly know yourself well enough. You aren't fully aware of the weaknesses, the emotional triggers that make it easy for others to touch and manipulate you. The Stoics believe that to have inner freedom, you must first learn to look clearly at yourself. When you know yourself well, you won't be easily swayed. It's like a warrior who knows where the gaps are in their armor, enabling them to reinforce it before going into battle. Whenever someone makes you upset, stop and ask yourself, why did that comment bother me so much? With just one slow breath, you separate yourself from the immediate, instinctive reaction. The habit of journaling what happened during the day is also a powerful practice. When you put your emotions onto the page, you are no longer being dragged by them. You are observing them from the outside, helping you see more clearly what truly hurts you. Toxic people are like a remote control, but that remote only works when you provide the battery. Once you remove the battery, meaning you understand and control your emotions, they no longer have the power to control you. Self-awareness is the first compass. When you hold it firmly, you can navigate any storm without losing yourself. Principle 2. Forgive them, free yourself. There are painful memories we carry with us for years. An insult, an act of betrayal, or some injustice. Sometimes it seems to lie dormant. But if anyone brings it up, our heart tightens as if an old wound is being torn open. We often think that clinging tightly to resentment is how we protect ourselves. But in reality, it's what makes us prisoners. Resentment is like a backpack filled with stones. The longer you carry it, the heavier your steps become. The person who caused the harm may have forgotten long ago, yet we continue to bind ourselves to the past. Forgiveness is not about justifying the wrongdoing, nor is it about denying what happened. Forgiveness is simply choosing to free yourself. When you put that backpack down, you can walk lightly and dedicate your energy to what truly matters ahead. The Stoics taught, what is past is outside of our control. We can only choose how we respond to it. And the wisest response is to forgive. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve a life that is freer and stronger. Try asking yourself, what is more important, clinging to anger or holding on to peace? That answer will remind you that forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. When you forgive, you are no longer just the person who suffered. You are the person who overcame. And from that freedom, you find the motivation to grow, to become a better and wiser version of yourself. Principle 3. Emotional stability. There are times when you find yourself in a conversation that feels like standing in the middle of a storm. The other person's words pour out like a whirlwind, sarcasm, blame, even insults. Your heart races, your breath is shallow, and every instinct urges you to react immediately. But that very moment is the true test. Because if you react impulsively, you've handed them the power to control your mood. The Stoics clearly understood that we cannot stop the storm, but we can choose how to stand firm. Imagine your mind as an ocean. On the surface, rough waves may churn with every gust of wind. But deep down, the water is always tranquil. Emotions are the same. You can observe the waves rising on the surface, while simultaneously keeping the inner depths of yourself at peace. One simple way is to inhale slowly, hold for a few seconds, then exhale long and slow. This action acts like an anchor, pulling you back to a state of calm awareness. Instead of being swept into the storm of words, you are standing in the eye of the storm, the calmest place amid the chaos. And once you regain stability, you can choose to respond with reason. Sometimes it's silence, sometimes it's a brief answer, but most importantly, it is your reaction, not the reaction the other person expected. Emotional stability does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. It is simply a reminder. I am the master of my mind, and no one else is. And when you maintain that calm, the toxic person loses their most potent weapon, the ability to drag you down into their mire. Principle 4. Boundaries with respect. Perhaps you've experienced this feeling. After a conversation, you walk away utterly exhausted, not because the work was too demanding, but because you allowed someone to cross a line, say things that hurt you, or take up too much of your time and energy. In those moments, your body is speaking to you. That fatigue isn't weakness, it's a signal. Your boundaries have been violated. The Stoics teach that we cannot master others, but we can master how we allow them to treat us. Setting boundaries is not about building a cold wall. It's about drawing a clear line. This is who I am, these are my values, and I do not allow anyone to cross this line. A boundary doesn't always require anger. Sometimes it's simply a calm statement. I don't wish to continue this conversation. Or a composed smile paired with a refusal. Thank you, but I can't participate in that. It is this consistency that compels others to respect you. Think of your life as a garden. Without a fence, anyone can walk in and trample the flowers. But when the fence is present, you not only protect what you value, but you also teach others how to respect that space. And the crucial thing is, when you learn to set boundaries, you don't just protect yourself. You help build healthier relationships. Because self-respect is the foundation for others to respect you. Setting boundaries is an act of courage. It not only keeps you safe, but also reminds you that you deserve peace and you have the right to protect it. Principle 5. Energy intelligence. Have you ever noticed that just being around a highly positive person can suddenly brighten your entire day? Conversely, just one conversation with a negative person can leave you exhausted, with no motivation left. That's because energy is like a form of atmosphere that we all breathe. The Stoics believe that we need to manage not just our emotions, but also our energy. Because energy is the fuel for every choice and action. Try to imagine your body as a cell phone. If you don't charge the battery properly, when the battery is low, every app runs slowly. It overheats and freezes easily. Humans are the same. Getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, making time for exercise and meditation. These are all ways you recharge to keep your mind clear and prevent it from being dragged down by bad energy. But energy doesn't only come from personal habits. It also comes from the environment and the people around you. Have you ever noticed that when you maintain your composure and stability, the whole room quiets down with you? That's when you are emitting positive energy, and it spreads. Toxic people often try to drain that energy. They repeatedly use complaints and provocative remarks so that you become tired and eventually react the way they want. But if you are aware, you can choose to pull the plug, refusing to let yourself become a power source for them to deplete. When you keep your body healthy and your mind clear, you can bring peace to yourself and spread that peace to those who deserve it. Principle 6. Focus on goals. Have you ever been fully dedicated to pursuing a goal, only to be stopped short by a single word of criticism or a moment of doubt from someone else? Toxic people often resemble headwinds, blowing the ship you are steering off course. The Stoics remind us that you cannot control the tongues of others, but you can control your own direction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't let your mind be pulled along by the noise outside. Keep it where you truly want to be." Imagine your goal as a lighthouse in a storm. High waves may crash and the wind may howl, but the light from the lighthouse remains steady, unwavering. Others may doubt, mock, or even deliberately try to pull you off your chosen path. But that light will remind you, you are heading in the right direction. There was a young man named Jordan who was determined to start a small project. From the beginning, friends and family constantly advised him to stop. This idea isn't feasible. You should choose a safer path. But instead of getting into arguments, Jordan quietly focused on learning, honing his skills, and gradually building his project. A few years later, when success arrived, the very people who had doubted him were the first to admit that consistency was the real power. Toxic people will always try to sow seeds of doubt in you. But remember, every bit of energy you spend responding to them is energy you've taken away from your own journey. Every time you choose silence and continue to move forward, you are proving that the noise around you is never as important as the path ahead. Keeping your eyes on the goal is how you keep your own light burning. When you stay consistent, the path will open up, and all the gossip will be nothing more than wind whistling past your ears. Principle 7. Seek support. Find wise anchors. There are times when you feel like you are stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. That is exactly the feeling of having to face a toxic person alone. The more you try to self-control, the easier it is to lose your temper and become exhausted. The Stoics never advocated living in isolation from the world. They understood that personal strength is multiplied many times over when we have allies. Seneca once wrote that true friendship is a place where each finds understanding and is understood. Think of the Spartan phalanx formation. One person might fall, but the cohesive unit forms an unbreakable wall. Life is the same. You don't need to struggle alone against everything. Sometimes, a shared word with a trusted friend, a conversation with a mentor, or simply an attentive ear is enough to pull you out of the quicksand of negativity. Some problems, when you are too close to them, appear as tangled mazes. But someone else, standing from a higher vantage point, can immediately show you the way out. That is the value of support. They don't fight the battle for you, but they give you a map to regain clarity. The important thing is to choose the right people to rely on. Support doesn't come from a noisy crowd, but from genuine relationships, where you can expose your vulnerability without fear of judgment. Seeking wise support is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is proof that you are mature enough to understand that true strength lies not in struggling alone, but in knowing when to navigate the storm with someone else. Principle 8. Master your self-talk. There is a toxic person that we often don't recognize, and they are not far away. They are right inside our heads. That is the inner voice, the thing that whispers every time you make a small mistake. I shouldn't have said that. Others must think I'm truly incompetent. Maybe I'll never be able to do it. These phrases may sound harmless, but repeated often enough, they gradually erode your self-confidence, turning you into a victim of yourself. Outsiders can sow harsh words into you, but it is your inner voice that determines whether you believe them. If you let that voice manipulate you, it becomes a covert toxic agent, destroying your self-confidence daily. The Stoics recognized this power early on. Epictetus once said, "Men are not disturbed by things, but by the view which they take of them." This means it's not the criticism that defeats you, but the act of repeating it in your head until you believe it to be true. Treat your mind like a garden. If you neglect it, weeds will grow everywhere. But if you plant positive seeds and tend to them every day, you will see flowers bloom brightly. And the wonderful thing is, you have the absolute right to choose what kind of seeds will grow in that garden. When you master your inner voice, you are no longer a victim of toxic whispers. You become the master, the one who decides that the garden of your mind will be vibrant, not covered in shadow. Principle 9. Solution-oriented mindset. When facing toxic people, our familiar reaction is often to complain or blame. Why are they treating me like this? I'm so unlucky to have to deal with them. But try to notice, the more you complain, the more you get stuck. You are dragged into the spiral of the problem, while the way out remains right in front of you. The Stoics remind us that in any situation, we always have a small space to choose our response. And the difference lies in whether we use that space to pour energy into complaint or into solution. Imagine you are a sailor at sea. When a storm arises, you have two choices: stand on the deck cursing the wind, or firmly grip the wheel and adjust the sails to bravely weather the storm. Life is the same. When a toxic person provokes you, ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation? Where do I need to adjust? Simply changing the question allows you to change your direction. An interesting truth is that when you focus on the solution, the toxic person gradually loses their power. Because what they want is your angry reaction, your prolonged frustration. But if you stand firm, calmly finding a way to handle it, you disrupt their game. The solution-oriented mindset doesn't make difficulties disappear immediately, but it turns adversity into a training opportunity. Every time you choose to adjust the sail instead of cursing the wind, you are forging a steel spirit, the very thing that will carry you through life's greater storms. Principle 10. The art of non-reaction. Toxic people often share one thing in common. They crave a reaction. Every taunt, every provocative action is like a lure. And if you take the bait, they achieve their goal. You get angry, you lose your composure, and they seize control. But try to think of it another way. Toxic people are like waves constantly crashing on the shore. If you brace yourself to resist them, you will quickly become exhausted. But if you stand firm, letting the wave wash over and recede, you ultimately remain, while the wave dissipates. That is the essence of the art of non-reaction. The Stoics believe you don't have to respond to every insult. True strength lies not in the ability to fire back, but in the ability to choose not to be dragged into a meaningless battle. Seneca once wrote, "The wise man is never moved by insults. He replies to injury by silence." This doesn't mean you must be silent in every situation. Rather, it means you know when to speak up and when silence is the most profound answer. Sometimes, just a composed glance or a gentle step back is enough to extinguish the flame the opponent deliberately tried to ignite. Try this practice. When someone says something that upsets you, instead of immediately replying, take a deep breath and ask, "Will my reaction make the situation better?" If the answer is no, allow that wave to recede on its own. The art of non-reaction doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it shows you are strong enough not to be controlled by anger. Because sometimes, non-reaction is the wisest reaction of all. Principle 11. Know when to walk away. Not every battle is worth fighting. In life, there are toxic people whom you cannot change, no matter how patient you are. You might advise them, endure their behavior, or try every approach, but every effort is like throwing stones into the ocean. And the harder you try, the more exhausted you become. The Stoics taught, don't waste your life on what is beyond your control. You cannot control how others think or act, but you can control the decision to stay or to leave. Sometimes wisdom lies not in forcing yourself to endure, but in knowing when to walk away. It's like sitting in a noisy room where you can't concentrate. You could try to stay, cover your ears, and brace yourself to tolerate it. But you can also choose to step outside and find peace for yourself. Retreating does not mean you lose. On the contrary, it is a sign of maturity. You understand that your worth and your peace are more important than proving a point to someone who will never change. If you find that a relationship, an environment, or a conversation only drains you further, allow yourself to walk away. Because you deserve a healthier space and a lighter life. Knowing when to walk away is how you affirm, my happiness does not depend on anyone else's acceptance. It rests in my own choice. Principle 12. Authenticity over false cordiality. A direct blow may hurt you immediately, but at least you know you're under attack. More dangerous are the fake smiles, as they silently erode you from within. That is the false cordiality hidden beneath a friendly veneer, something just as toxic as direct criticism. The Stoics remind us that a relationship is truly valuable only when it is built on authenticity, not on masks. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Being authentic doesn't mean you have to expose everything, but that what you say and do truly reflects your inner values. When faced with insincerity, you don't need to expose or argue with it. The important thing is to trust your intuition. If you feel a relationship exhausts you, if the kindness is only a facade, allow yourself to maintain distance. Not every handshake is worth gripping, and not every smile is worth trusting. Authenticity also means daring to be honest with yourself. Instead of straining to please everyone, you dare to say no when necessary. And you dare to show your true self. Because peace doesn't come from how many people like you, but from not having to wear a mask to exist. Toxic people can deceive many, but they cannot deceive you if you steadfastly choose authenticity. And when you live true to yourself, you will naturally attract genuine relationships. People who see your real value and want to accompany you long-term. Authenticity is the ultimate shield. It not only protects you from insincerity, but also guides you toward more stable and peaceful connections. After all, you see, toxic people will never disappear from this world. They might be at work, in social settings, or even in your closest relationships. But the important thing isn't eliminating them. It's building an inner fortress strong enough so that no one can invade it. The 12 Stoic principles we've just covered are not merely coping tactics. They are the bricks that build a solid foundation for your life. They teach you to look deeply within yourself, to forgive to be free, to maintain peace amidst the storm, to dare to set boundaries, to choose solutions over complaint, and finally, to live authentically. This is not distant theory. It is a practical journey for you to reclaim the peace of your mind. Remember, you cannot control how others live, but you can control how you react. And when you master your reaction, you master your life. If what you heard today resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Which principle do you want to start applying right now? And don't forget to subscribe and share this video with people you care about, so we can build a stronger community together. One where everyone can live freely, peacefully, and steadfastly in the face of all adversity. Take action. Guard your inner self, and let your life naturally shine most beautifully.